is William Jordan Dent. I go by Jordan. And I've worked here almost 2 years. Yeah. My 3 favorite things about working here would be the great cohesive team that I get to come and be a part of every day.
Jordan is a hard worker. He's particular to detail. Make sure everything's done right.
The second thing would be just the opportunity to be a part of a educational community and to be able to study here. That's huge.
Jordan is astute, diligent, and organized.
And then the last thing is definitely that I get to do work which is really similar to what I was doing in the monastery and that I love to do. And even on a piece of property that's about the same size as the monastery.
I'm Josette Dent. I'm Jordan's mom.
And I'm Jim Dent, Jordan's father.
He was always very passionate about his faith. And so it wasn't a surprise to us that he decided to follow some kind of ministry. We weren't familiar with the Orthodox Church, but it seemed to fit with his fascination with history and ritual. He was still a 21-year-old. And to see him grow and become this independent person, to make his own decisions.
It's like an animal being let out of a cage.
Yeah. And that was absolutely wonderful. It gave so that when he did leave, we knew he was ready to leave. And, we had complete trust in him, but it was a process. And, we never took it for granted, never forced him. I never expected him not to be Orthodox.
So what we're looking at here in my room, I've unboxed my monastic robes. These, it's sometimes called a cassock, and it is black, which symbolizes, death to the world, death to all things earthly, and to oneself. And it's accompanied by a belt, which is representing, chastity.
Knowing that he had lived this life for 7 years, and knowing he was still allegiant to a lot of it, probably. I mean, that was his life. We were very careful. We didn't ask questions. The more they lured him in, the more questions we had. They were offering him immediate priesthood. Then things just started unraveling.
So I didn't cut my hair between January of 2012 and February of 2020. Yeah, 8 years.
We were unhappy. We were shocked. He dropped out of school. He'd sold everything that was of any value to him. We were oblivious. I mean, we were really blindsided by it. And he would say things like, Dionysius said I should cut my hair, or I shouldn't cut my hair, or I should only wear black, or I can't wear leather shoes. I was like, Jordan, no one has the right to tell you what you can or cannot wear.
I think the important precedent is that everything that we did in the monastery was really based out of, monastic rules and principles from the 4th century to 11th century. Basically, everything we did was grounded in very old, often ancient monastic practices.
It was awful. It was worse than death. You can see our family pictures. I had a wall of family pictures. I took them down.
Wow.
Because it was too painful to look at.
Tell them why it's worse than death.
Well, because I knew he was out there. If there was death is final. There's a finality to it.
Right.
But he was out there somewhere.
This is more like a kidnapping or a
Yeah,
abduction.
it's-
So one really nice anecdote that maybe best illustrates my relation to my family was the second time that I saw my older brother. I walked up with my brother to a high spot in the monastery, and we were looking out all over the field, and he told me that what I was doing was worse than suicide, because if I had committed suicide, at least I would be dead and gone. But with what I was doing, it was causing additional pain to my parents because I was still living. Like, it was being held over everyone's heads that I was still living.
Just seeing the things that went against the church law as church law was taught, that really, I think, bothered Jordan a lot, and that made him decide to move on, to move away from that. Yeah.
You know, I think I'm a bit of a risk taker, and I decided I would challenge God. It all kind of culminated in a few weeks of depression and frustration at very obvious non-canonical actions of the elder. But the truth is, I saw a number of these monks try to leave, or I had heard of monks and nuns who had left. I really admire, the example of my parents. And I don't understand why, it's kind of a divine mystery for me. Why some people end up raising kids and others, dedicate their lives celibately to God. But it seems to all kind of come down to what I felt in my gut after years of consideration and really making sure that I made that decision with a clear mind and taking in, all of my feelings.
James, his younger brother, came down with Jim and they bought the ticket, and I'm relaying everything to him. We had been duped so many times that I said to him, "Is this really you?" And he sent me a picture of himself. And he said, "Yes, Mom, it's me." Jordan had sent him an email saying, I sent an email to Mom and Dad. And in that email was everything I wanted to hear for the past 7 years. I'm sorry, I love you. The only thing I am leaving the monastery. The only thing I want from you is money for a plane ticket. And he used his name Jordan. We had been scolded if we called him anything other than Father Demetrios. But every time we went and saw the child, I would get him close where no one else could hear, and I would say his name. Any chance I got, because I wanted to remind him that he was Jordan. We did that very intentionally, because we wanted our son, and we love him the way he is. So that was, if we had gone the other way, if we had bashed them immediately, and the outcome might not have been the same. And we thought, we're going to let this kid tell us his story.
So, living in the monastery, I did live a very regimented lifestyle, and I would say that by itself was helpful for me with my mental health. People would always tell me in the monastery that I was a very organized person, but my answer was always actually I'm naturally very unorganized, and so I look so organized because I have to make such an effort to just keep things at a normal. Yeah, in order to compensate, I look like I'm super organized, but actually I'm just barely keeping up with the rest of them. I think that the post-it note wall It's not entirely a coping mechanism for the ADHD, but it does help. I think a lot of people, they have all this stuff floating around in their heads and they forget it. And for me, that's just kind of crazy anyway. And I have so much more floating around in my head. I have to put it out. It's kind of an extension of my brain, right? It helps me structure all those things. Like I can structure them by priority, I can structure them by subject, I can structure them by my day, what do I have to do with my day, by hour. Things I want to keep, things that I don't even want to think about sorting yet. I can move it around. It's totally modular. It's awesome. It helps me kind of feel like everything is contained. It's kind of within my control. I think there's also really something to be said for like the joy of just deleting a post-it note. Like it's a very pleasurable experience.
And we knew that he had established really good friends at work and school and the parish that he attends.
We hired him because we thought he was a good candidate in the fact that he had experience and he seemed like a go-getter and very detail-oriented.
I remember when I was hired, I presented what I felt like was a very impressive resume that checked all of their boxes. I have a background experience working on a variety of lawn mowing equipment, repairing equipment, doing regularly scheduled maintenance. For my first year, I was mostly just kind of on the bottom rung and weed whacking, but I'm okay with that because I love the beauty of the details of this work that we do.
That job at McDaniel was another miracle. Because we told him your body, your mind needs to rest, and he was like, "No, I want to get a job." And the fact that the job had benefits. He was 29 years old. It offered benefits. It offered free tuition.
Jordan had lost, of those 7 years he was away, most of those years he lost the opportunity to really have structured education. I think you got a year or two with something in Greece, but not like a real program that he could just mainly focus on because he had his work at the monasteries there. And they would work, as Jordan told me, and sleep and live in unheated buildings in the cold mountains they would work 16-hour days or more. And any time to be driven to Athens for school or to study was rare or very difficult. So he really did not have a program as they had promised him, a seminary program.
So I'm an English major here at McDaniel, and I aspire to be a lawyer one day, primarily working in adoption, family law. Really, I've been so inspired by my parents having adopted 2 children. I have always felt a strong tug to adopt children myself, even when I was in the monastery, and that was really part of why I left. Like, I really in the future would like to work in marriage mediation and even working as a divorce mediation, or because what I went through is not a divorce, but sometimes it feels like it has felt like a divorce.
Jordan, to me, he exhibits great compassion, great attentiveness, and great respect for others.
And kind of the longer term, I'm really trying to find a relationship, and then I also really am just want to have a laser focus on just making my dad's last 2 years just the best as possible for him. Yeah. We found out that he had prostate cancer, which was metastatic, and it is actually stage 4, so it's spread all the way to his lower back, and it's hard to say how much longer he'll be around with us. I think that the longer and longer that I'm not in the monastery and not in a relationship, the more I feel like my time since having left has been wasted. But otherwise, no, I don't really regret it. And I'm really considered my decisions, and then I took the necessary steps to leave, and like there weren't any remaining questions for me, so I don't really regret it. Knowing what I know now, what would I have told myself before entering? I would have told myself to be a lot more patient. I would have taken more time to communicate with the people that I loved, and to show them that I loved them, and to give them the love, that they needed. In my frenzy to spend as much time as possible at the monastery, I wasn't like considerate enough of the people who I really loved. Even when times were really hard for them, they still would brag to people. They would brag to visitors that they always wanted somebody with my mom's head and my dad's heart, and that was me. Hey.
Oh, hey, how are you?
Good.
Good, it's good to see you.
Nice to be back with you.
When we told our friends about the situation that we were in, we were very careful to say, not all, most Orthodox people are wonderful people.
Right.
This group is not.
We had felt for many years intimidated by the folks at the monastery, that they were trying to control us, keep us away, so they could have their type of community that they wanted, and that they wanted for Jordan. But when he came back, we really felt we needed to give him that space.
I would have to say I'm most proud of the fact that he had the courage to do what he did. It took a lot of courage for him to escape, which is what he did. And he had a lot of people against him doing that there.
I'm most proud of him for making a plan to get out of Norway and to executing it. And what I will never forget is the story of him riding on a bus all night, in the back of a bus, and having the gall, the strength, the courage to convince this bus driver that even though he had the wrong ticket, he knew where he was going, and he needed that driver to go to take him there.
What did Father Tim tell you? One of the first things he asked you was, have you asked your parents?
Oh, have you apologized to your parents
Have you
yet?
apologized to your parents yet? Which I thought was reflective of what a genuine Orthodox person would say,
Yeah. We weren't looking for an apology.
No, not at
all.
all. No, not at all.
I ended up coming back because I wanted to be married and have children and probably adopt children. And what other model do I don't have any other model. I'm not trying to make you cry.
No.
I don't have any other model, but they inspired me in these big goals in my life. I think a lot of my ambition I owe to my parents, to try to be a lawyer, and my natural curiosity, which is one of the most valuable things in the world for me. I trace that back to days in the workshop with Dad, building rockets and stuff, and with my grandpa doing house projects.
Ultimately, I want Jordan to find himself in a job that he's happy.
Right. Ultimately,
That he's not always looking for the next thing.
It'll be exciting to see where, this all finally goes, or not the word final, but where it goes and keeps going and going and
Right.
going.
In a broad sense, how do you feel about your future? It's a heavy question.
I feel cautiously certain about my future. And I feel cautiously hopeful that the vision I kind of am setting out for is is achievable. So this poem is called It Couldn't Be Done. It's by Edward Guest, who was one of my mother's favorite poets. She would make us recite typically a Guest poem every summer. Somebody said that it couldn't be done, but he with a chuckle replied that maybe it couldn't, but he would be one who wouldn't say so till he tried. So he buckled right in with the trace of a grin on his face. If he worried, he hid it. And he started to sing as he tackled the thing that couldn't be done. And he did it. Somebody scoffed, "Oh, you'll never do that." Or at least no one ever has done it. But he took off his coat and he took off his hat. And the first thing we knew, he'd begun it. With a lift of his chin and a bit of a grin, without any doubting or quit it, he started to sing as he tackled the thing that couldn't be done, and he did it. There are thousands to tell you it cannot be done. There are thousands to prophesy failure. There are thousands to point out to you each one by one the dangers that wait to assail you. But just buckle in with a bit of a grin. Just take off your coat and go do it. Just start to sing as you tackle the thing that cannot be done, and you'll do it.